Hello everyone, my name is Tim Fox, and I'm a proud member of the 60 Gates of the Bee, the Blackfoot Confederacy. I'm the Vice President of Indigenous Relations and Equity Strategy with Calgary Foundation, and I'm also the child of residential school survivors. The National Day for Truth and Reconciliation is an invitation for all Canadians to take the time to remember the harmful legacy these institutions had on many survivors and honor the lives lost through these efforts of assimilation. It's a day to mobilize a truth-telling movement that we are literally surfacing through the tragic discovery of children's remains at residential school sites, and to honor those children who never made it home. It's a day that should inspire a shift in society, in attitudes and beliefs, and change to our systems on that day and throughout the entire year.
As a residential school survivor and a past City of Calgary employee, I wanted to see if I could share my story and also to assist IRO in helping them in disseminating all of the questions surrounding truth and reconciliation, also the Flying Goose report, and also to connect with the other Indigenous groups within the City of Calgary. So with this Orange Shirt Day, we have to be a little more cognizant of what happened to those children, the parents, the grandparents. So that pipe ceremony was significant. Start another page. Let's start again. See where this goes.
Orange Shirt Day is always, to me, it's a very heartfelt thing. Our elders always say that the journey from the head to the heart is the longest and hardest journey that you can take. Until people start feeling things more from the heart and instead from the head, that's where real change is actually going to happen. It's about developing relationships, getting to know people, and again, like I said, hearing stories. So Orange Shirt Day is always remembering and honoring the children that never came home from residential schools. And we all know that there were thousands of children that never came home, but that truth was never told, to the majority of Canadians in education and other areas. So Orange Shirt Day is really important, and it is about telling truths, and it is hopefully about connecting with people with their hearts, that they can understand, that when children are taken away from their family breaks, and that is why many of our families are affected by intergenerational trauma in some way, shape, or form. And I say that to my coworkers, that every single Indigenous person in Canada is impacted by intergenerational trauma in some way. And all Indigenous people, including myself, is either a child or a grandchild of a residential school survivor. I'm a child. My birth mom went to residential school, and that's why I was taken from child services from the hospital and put up for adoption. So Orange Shirt Day is really significant. I'm glad that the federal government has recognized September 30th as the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. However, I really hope that all the provinces, recognize it as well too.
Orange Shirt Day for me is an important part of knowing that, this is the future. These children are our future. The kids that were lost or didn't make it, these are often should be reminders of us why a child is a really important part of our future, an important part of what could have been. Doing my master's degree, I wrote a paper specifically on, these children that never made it home from Indian residential school. By intervening in a culture's way of life, introducing to this something completely, and forcing them to be part of something different. We have altered their reality, we've altered their future. We altered something that would have happened in the future. We've changed it forever and can never take it back. We don't know what those children would have been, what they could have contributed to their communities had they given a chance, and given an opportunity to have a really decent education. They were not given that either. There's so many complicating factors to it.
Oh, it means an awful lot to me because as a survivor of Indian day schools, we have come through the darkest times in the history of Canada. as Indigenous peoples. And for people, non-Indigenous peoples, I think it's critical that they learn the true history of our Indigenous peoples here in North America and around the globe. I feel that, if it was taught in schools, there wouldn't be so much racism in our society. There'd be a lot more tolerance and understanding.
In recognition of this significant day, I'll be making sure to connect with my parents and those residential school survivors in my life as a way to acknowledge their strength in overcoming many levels of trauma, adversity, and wounded spirits. And together, we will take the time to grieve many of the lives lost and the children who never made it home. I'll also be holding space to educate the public on the impacts of intergenerational trauma at a virtual event. And then finally, I'll be taking part in many virtual community events and gatherings as a way that helps to educate my daughter on this truth so that she can be a part of the reconciliation we so desire in these contemporary times.
Whereas embedding Indigenous ways of doing things is ongoing, lifelong, it's part of policies and procedures. So that's my goal and my position is to try and embed Indigenous ways of doing things within the city of Calgary.
It's just like anything, like we commemorate the World Wars, Holocaust, and usually like with World War I, the Great War as it's referred to in history, is that commemorate it so that it doesn't happen again. And I think that's the most important thing that I'd like people to focus on. When they think of residential school, they might think, get over it already. It happened so long ago. Well, it hasn't really stopped. There aren't any residential schools, but there's still a lot of change, a lot of work that we as the city and we as a country have to do. You look at the damage to the social fabric, it's there. And that's why Orange Shirt Day is really important, is because, as I mentioned, it's about taking out those negative experiences and replacing them with positive experiences. And that's how I've learned is a good way to heal.
I have many events I have to go to. One is at City Hall on the 30th. There's a permanent installation for those little shoes, which represent those little spirits that their graves were discovered in British Columbia. And I often say there are thousands more that will be discovered if they keep looking. And so it's a very jam-packed week for me, starting already this past week. There was a lot of workshops that I've done on reconciliation. To me, I think reconciliation, I can sort of look at a parallel between the work that I've done in South Africa. When Nelson Mandela and them were working on reconciliation, theirs was so much more meaningful because they went into reconciliation. So they took action and they started making changes at the government level, and they worked on down. And so I was out to South Africa to work on some of that stuff because Nelson Mandela had said, if it weren't for you people, he said, when we were in prison, we read that book, Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. That was our Bible. We read that every day. That's what kept us alive. That's what kept us motivated. If they can do it, then we can do the same. We can survive. And so when I look back at the dark history, how the apartheid system was adopted over there, the same reason they adopted these colonization affects people the same way right around the globe. So for me, the work has been very meaningful, and I don't think too many people have a schedule like I have, because I have very few hours in the day just to take and take out for myself.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a lot of work to be done.
That was great. Thank you. So the next one is, in what way can you and others honor both victims and survivors of residential schools, not only on Orange Shirt Day, but every day?
Well, first of all, I think for me as an elder, my big responsibility is to, I always say the healing begins with me. I must take good care of myself in order to gain balance and harmony within not only what's going on within myself, but around me, my inside and around me, my whole world. When I do that, that entails ceremony. It also entails a lot of prayer, a lot of mindfulness, a lot of active participation in educating others. Like I still teach, or I do circles with the AIM High group with the medical students at the U of, through the University of Calgary, and at Mount Royal University and St. Mary's University. That's just one little person in 1 week. So I do my ultimate best to really bring that awareness to people because it's so critical. There's a lot of need to heal our own people. So it's not only educating others, non-Indigenous people, but it's also educating our next set of elders, working with those elders in the making, and then the community at large. So there's not too many people have the schedule like I have.
In my work, I have come to understand there are significant changes needed when it comes to action toward reconciliation. We are working against decades of oppression, racism, discrimination, and genocide. Our very culture has been shaped by this negative history, how we act, what we believe, and how the infrastructure of our organizations are built. Therefore, this work should be part of an ongoing process for all. It has taken generations for us to get to where we are, and it will take generations to get us to a place of true social justice. So as you participate in all these learning and unlearning events, never stop finding ways to mobilize the knowledge that you are gaining. Never stop making efforts to disrupt harmful attitudes and beliefs in a way that calls folks into the conversation so that we are shifting for change and progress.
And that we all, pay respects to all the children that never came home and all the survivors out there, that are working on healing. Many of our survivors are the ones that are living on the streets. And that's why it's really important, as an elder said the other day, is to not just walk by these people like they don't exist, to shake their hands, give them some spirit change if you can, to know that they're a human being and that they have their own story and not to judge. So this is why Orange Shirt Day is really, really important to me, because to me it's not just one day, it's every day. These are things that we always remember and carry in our hearts, and every area of our life is always remembering other families and children that were impacted.
Orange Shirt Day is a very important symbol for all of us to remember that, we never forget that we need to make sure we save our children. We need to love them, all children. We need to protect them. We need to give them that opportunity, and any opportunity, the best opportunities if possible.
Educating yourself. I noticed that the most reluctant group I've worked with are teachers in the regular school system. They seem to be able to justify that they're the experts within the field. And maybe it's fear. I don't know what it is, but fear to step out of their comfort zones and learn something new, learn a different way, and think outside the box. I think education is critical for all of us. I find myself in a position where there's not very many countries that I haven't been to on the planet. So when I go to somebody else's country, I always try to learn, at least if I'm in Fiji, for instance, the greeting there is bula. If I go to New Zealand, it's kia ora. I try to learn about the people that I'm going to be rubbing shoulders with and dealing with and interacting with. So to me, education is critical. It's the primary way. And now with the websites, there's no reason why, there's a lot of online free educational workshops that people can attend. So there's no excuse anymore that people haven't got that ability to reach out, because we have a lot more tools than we ever had before. So, and most of them, or a lot of them, are free.
We can't forget about the efforts towards equality and access to basic human rights. That's always been a motivation and an action put forth by Indigenous people and Indigenous communities. We can't forget about the wisdom, the insights, and the path forward that are outlined in reports like the Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples, the Truth and Reconciliation 94 Calls to Action, and the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People. Those are only 3 among many tools and resources that are accessible to all in this day and age. So as you embark on your own individual journey of knowledge, capacity, and understanding and motivation for change, you have to ask yourself, does everyone within my sphere of influence now hold the same levels of understanding, knowledge, and motivation for change that I now hold? And if the answer is no, then that's what's next. We can't forget about the importance of context setting, sense making, and truth telling in an effort towards reconciliation.
And that we all, pay respects to all the children that never came home, and all the survivors out there, that are working on healing. Many of our survivors are the ones that are living on the streets. And that's why it's really important, as an elder said the other day, is to not just walk by these people like they don't exist, to shake their hands, give them some spirit change if you can, to know that they're a human being and that they have their own story, and not to judge. So this is why Orange Shirt Day is really, really important to me, because to me it's not just one day, it's every day. These are things that we always remember and carry in our hearts, and every area of our life is always remembering other families and children that were impacted. We just hope that we can impact other people more broadly, so we can start working towards, from reconciliation, more towards reconciliation, again, coming from the heart and developing relationships.
It's important that we have an Indigenous Relations Office in this city, a major city in Western Canada, specifically because it resides on lands of these Indigenous people. And there is a very dark and morbid history that is associated with that. And it's really important that the truth is actually told. Somehow we manage as a society to skirt around all truths, and we give some of the story, but not the entire story. And those things are really actually important, because it does impact not only the Indigenous population. They feel they can build a better relationship with you, but as well as our non-Indigenous people who are new to this country. Truth is a really important part of this process. And in this office, I realize with my colleagues, the conversations we've had, this is a really key component. It's nice to see that change. It's nice to see our city government making that effort, to have and maintain good relationships, specifically with their Indigenous people, acknowledging them. That's a start. There's still a lot of ways to go.
Canada, North America, Turtle Island is built on Indigenous land. And so it's just really important, just with history and how colonization has gone, it's needed, the work that's needed. So in the IRO, our main goal really is to implement the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to action as they're outlined in the White Goose Flying report, which White Goose Flying is really those calls to action that have been narrowed down so that they apply to a municipality like the city of Calgary. And then so implementing those calls to action really is just about creating a better city for all of the citizens, for all Calgarians, and recognizing the importance of Treaty 7, the Métis Nation, and urban Indigenous Calgarians. We're partnered with the Calgary Board of Education and Calgary Catholic School District, so we'll have a lot of youth out. And youth are our future. And we don't just mean Indigenous youth, we mean non-Indigenous youth as well, because it's really important for all of us to come together and replace these experiences with positive ones that will endure, and to keep and to maintain a commitment to that, because really it's, if you think about it, the whole situation is it's incredibly inequitable, and that's just wrong.